the truth of it is, as is reflected in this conversation, that we're facing a depopulation bomb and it's going to be a disaster. It won't be good for Mother Earth, won't be good for anyone. Some broad figures. I mean, I understand there's around 10 countries now that are in a demographic depopulation bomb, can't be avoided. And there's quite a few countries about to, including my own, about to join that bomb. It's also relevant in terms of the angst over immigration at the moment. You know, the truth is that there are many bureaucrats who are in favour of a high immigration rate because they don't want to go and tell people, you know, the reality is that we won't have the workers and the taxpayers tomorrow because you're not having children. You ought to have more children. They're not going to talk like that because you can't talk about family anymore. Politicians have stopped talking about family because the zeitgeist has sort of said they're a bad thing for all the reasons that we've discussed. We've got to change the conversation from our leaders.
It has to be. It's completely crazy that, I mean, you just talked about the demographic bomb. I mean, as you probably know, a lot of this kind of anti-family stuff came out of the Population Bomb book by Paul Ehrlich back in the 1970s. And basically, they saw the baby boom and they thought this is going to overpopulate the earth. Now, the baby boom in terms of birth rates relative to birth rates in previous historical periods was actually quite a small birth rate. So they completely panicked for no reason. But this mindset set in. And as you said, it's increasingly over time made it taboo for policymakers to talk about this. Thing is, now that the bean counters is in effect, the civil servants and the people working at treasuries and OBR here, Office for Budget Responsibility and so on, now that they've been forced by some of the work I and others have done to look at what the actual numbers are for, as you say, required immigration just to keep the, you know, population pyramid propped up, GDP growing, public debt not rising too much. They're starting to look at these figures and they're realizing they're destabilizing levels. I mean, I'll just tell you that the Office for Budget Responsibility here in the UK, which is effectively Treasury's unofficial or official forecasting arm, and the forecasts themselves are actually prescriptive, as you probably know from your time in government. This is often the case. They are saying that you need 350,000 immigrants a year in Britain just to keep on a trajectory that they already say is fiscally explosive. They already say that the debt to GDP ratio is going to go up to something like 300% by 2080. And even just to coast along, 350,000 a year, that's 3.5 million every 10 years, which is what, 5% of the population every 10 years? I mean, everyone knows this is going to be politically destabilizing and no one can say it. And I think they've trapped themselves for the reasons that you've highlighted, because it's become taboo to talk about the family and so on. Well, we're at the tipping point now. We really are at the tipping point. We're literally already at the point where the OBR is saying we need 350,000 immigrants a year or this thing falls apart economically. And we know 350,000 immigrants a year is going to be politically destabilizing. Then on the other hand, it's even worse because the birth rates themselves, especially in the younger cohort, are falling off a cliff. We don't have total fertility rate as the way we measure the birth rate, and that's for a whole life cycle of a woman. We don't have that, obviously, for Gen Z. But we do have good numbers for Gen Z from age 16 to about 25, and the birth rate's fallen substantially. My co-author in a previous paper, Paul Moreland, he's a demographer here in Britain. He's firmly convinced, and I completely believe him, that Britain and all these other Western countries within maybe 10 years are going to see their birth rate fall to South Korean levels, which is 0.8, which is, you know, for every 2 people, you're getting whatever it is, 0.8 people for the next generation. I mean, the exponential degrowth in population. And we're going to see that in the next generations come up. So we already have the crisis, which is why we're seeing immigration crises all over Europe at the moment. And they're going to start in America too, and maybe in Australia too. And at the same time, you ain't seen nothing yet in terms of birth rates, because what we're coasting on is maybe a 1.5 birth rate. That's going to halve. That's going to halve in the next 10 years unless something's turned around.